I'd have to remind myself. It says that nobody likes the Mind's Eye. I'd have to remind myself why.
Because they're signers.
Because, yeah, half of them are signers.
So your new benefit is you get a +2 bonus when attempting to disbelieve an illusion, which isn't a thing in 5th edition. So I mean, just write down advantage on saving throws against like illusory effects.
Okay.
And once per long rest, you can remove a fear effect on anybody in your line of sight as a bonus action.
Oh, okay. I was supposed to say, well, I could do that already. No, that's
It's not
fine.
great monk power. Yeah.
Your new restriction is that merchants routinely overcharge you by 20% unless somebody vouches for you. I don't know why that is. But their basic philosophy is that everybody's the center of their own worlds, but that they temper that with... That just means all the more that you have to continue on your path of self-improvement. So they've kind of melded those two philosophies, the believers and the signers. The Bleak Cabal just shrug. They just keep doing what they're doing.
Also pointless.
The Doomguard no longer have any kind of presence in Sigil. They don't get the armory back. They basically retreat out to the inner planes, and yeah, they have a bad time of it.
They sucked.
The Dustmen weren't even really part of the war. So, fun thing about the Fated is in the weeks and months after the faction war, because the Fated can no longer collect the taxes, and there's all this question about like what's going to happen is the whole financial section. Turns out that the taxes were just enriching Fated. Like it doesn't matter.
I fucking knew it. Taxes are fake. Nodal wins. Faction war.
So advantage on illusion effects. When you said
you can remove fear as a bonus action once per long rests. You could already do that on yourself because you're a monk, but this allows you to do it on anybody.
Okay, got it.
The Fraternity of Order, elements of it continue to run the Sigil courts, but the faction itself doesn't have any more power there. What comes out, if we had done the whole adventure, this would have been a bigger part of it, but what comes out is that Hashkar himself was a petitioner, which is where that's the state of being where after you die you become a petitioner on an outer plane. He's the only petitioner ever known to land in Sigil.
Huh. That's kind of cool.
Yep.
So maybe that's why he was around for so long. As a human, apparently?
The Free
Could have
League
taken him in a fight.
says, no more factions, no more oppression, and best of all, no more harmonium. So they just continue business as usual in the Bazaar. The Harmonium don't see any real reason to stay in Sigil at this point. They just they just redouble their efforts elsewhere throughout the multiverse. The Mercy Killers permanently split up into the Sons of Mercy and the Sod Killers.
Man, Sons of Mercy didn't win this war, though. They were around for like one day, and then their faction got broke up.
The Revolutionary League no longer exists in the sense that it once did. Primarily because after the factions go away, but society continues, they just fall to bickering amongst themselves. Well, that didn't accomplish much. What do we do now? And nobody creates a consensus on what the next big revolution needs to be.
Well, I'm sure there are also people of Riot Stripes who are like, okay, we did it. We don't need to be... Like, Riot's end goal was always to be in in-depth, you know? But I have a question about that, about the Revolutionary League. So, the Lady of Pain goes to all these different factions, to their headquarters, and says, like, all right, your faction is no longer welcome here. Disband or die. Or the Dabus do, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Did the Dabus... did Riot get a personal visit from the Dabus? Your cell is no longer welcome here. All right, next, cross the name off list. Your cell is no longer welcome here.
Yeah, pretty much. The Dabu spent an entire day doing exactly that. Just to make sure everybody gets the message. The Sensates continue to operate the Fest Hall in an unofficial capacity. The Sod Killers... They weren't ever an official faction anyway, but they actually continue to grow in size and power over time. The Sons of Mercy continue to operate the prison in an unofficial capacity. Swan Sung is manages to come back from the brink before pushing the war all the way over the edge. The problem they face now is they no longer have like official sanction as far as legal power or jurisdiction in the city. So without the Harmonium in town, they're kind of like, man, we really needed those guys. The Transcendent Order. This is, again, Reese is my favorite factal. Like, I didn't make this up. This is right out of the book. Reese takes on special significance in the City of Doors, as she's the only factal known to have survived the Lady's Purge. So she actually sets up the Sigil Advisory Council.
Again, with these way too long group names.
The council prefers to meet in smaller venues. Probably to minimize the chance of anybody getting mazed. And nobody even noticed the Factal Quran is gone. So, that's the chaos then.
Right.
All the Factal Qurans noticed.
So, that's actually, again, that's another part of the adventure. You guys had the real Factal Quran.
No, it's like how Harry Potter totally stole that.
What?
So this adventure has a pretty huge, in my opinion, like fatal flaw in that it has this huge, awesome, like 2-page epilogue describing all the events that went down, all of Darkwood's machinations, but there's nothing in the adventure that could ever lead the PCs to learning this. And it even says at one point, like, only the lady ever really knows everything that happened.
That's kind of dumb.
That's about as iconic a second edition adventure as you can get.
That's second edition. We got legend lore.
It's the only... Well, it was also a second edition spell. You could legend lore then. But it's the only second edition adventure I know that has that quality. Like, it's very fan fiction-y.
I like the story that we came up with. Actually, there's 7 Darkwoods. They're all dancing around time. Yeah, I like that.
So how many Darkwoods are there? Because I have to know.
So here's what happened. Darkwood, the old Barmy, did not get mazed. The lady erases his memory, sends him out of Sigil, down to the lower planes. He's impressed into slavery by some... Doesn't matter. And the problem with Darkwood is there is a planner sect called the Incantifiers, and their whole thing is to prolong their life as long as possible using any kind of magic. So what happens to Darkwood is he wants to take over Sigil. That's his goal. He realizes he's not going to be able to probably do that in one human lifetime. So he falls in with these Incantifiers. When he does that, because that's an inherently evil act, and he's working with weird dark magic, his god abandons him. He loses all his priest levels. Which frees him up to take warlock levels, which is exactly what he did. Which is why he's able to summon swords and stuff now. So he slaves away on the lower planes, and he for centuries, because he's prolonged his life. He can't die, and he gets snippets of his past life, of his memories over the centuries, and eventually he realizes he has this wellspring of magic power in him that was released from the stone that he has never unleashed properly. So he backstabs his master in his Beatisu slaver, works his way up the ranks, becomes an incredibly powerful warlock, bends all of his time and study to becoming a lich or whatever, and eventually decides to revisit this idea of overthrowing the Lady of Pain, which he thinks he can do by creating the Labyrinth Stone, not realizing he's going to become entrapped in it.
Oh, so wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
So we were in a 3 Darkwood situation.
So I'll just read the last few paragraphs of the book. I won't subject you all to the 2 full pages. And these are D&D book pages with little text and.
Wibbly wobbly.
And he saw it for the first time, as if he'd stepped back from a spattering of dots and finally perceived the terrible mural they formed. He knew what had happened, who he was, who he had been, and who he would be yet again. He knew that he would find himself not once, but twice, and that he'd die at the hands of the barmy he'd been, the barmy he'd be. And worst of all, he knew that he'd rot somewhere, lost in darkness, and totally alone until that time, whenever it came to pass. Sanity came upon him then, and he wailed at the power of the fates that drove the multiverse. It had taken 3 of him to bring these events about, the rule of 3s. They looped back in on themselves like a constricting bracelet, the unity of rings. And for this torture and eventual destruction, he could blame no one but himself, the center of all.
And Kelian.
He wondered then if the lady knew all along. Did she trap him rather than simply annihilate him because she saw what must occur? Will she spare Darkwood from death so that he could go on to become Githzerai, who could only go on to become her ancient foe? Did she engineer the events so that the jewel would be opened only when she desired it, only when the proper set of circumstances had finally arisen? Was her hand the guiding force, or was she too a prisoner of fate, helpless to break out of her shell? He didn't know. Perhaps he'd never know, but he'd have a lot of time to think about it. And that's the end of Duke Darkwood. Well, kind of the end.
Kind of. You can't really.
There's no end to Duke Darkwood.
No.
Well, can I ask? Was it Dark? Okay, I know this is relevant. You can just tell me.
Yeah.
You can't tell me yet. But was it Darkwood who did all the bookkeeping in Kilian's name?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. That was
Oh, yeah.
It was another contingency plan because what had happened, and I had to write this into the story because I was fast tracking some of the stuff. In the actual adventure, he tracks down the stone.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And it comes into his possession, and then the lady attempts to maze him, which triggers his contingencies. The stone is then found by some drunk guy who buys booze with it, and it just passes from hand to hand until it lands in Lou's place. The actual adventure, a lot of it is tracking down that stone. You actually get the scroll very early. You have to track down the guy who writes the Factals Manifesto. He's hiding in a place called Nowhere, which is a place for political enemies of Sigil to go hide out. You find him, and he's got the scroll. You walk the streets with him, and the spell doesn't do anything. But then you get twigged about this stone, and yeah, it goes on from there. We pretty much just did the last third of the adventure.
Okay.
We did the whole part with finding out the barmaid and the gatehouse. We just did that earlier in the campaign. But yeah, his thought was if anybody came sniffing around while he was searching for these magic stones, he didn't have connection with Eldov, he couldn't follow that train. He did the next best thing, just start keeping tabs on every magic stone coming into the city. And who better to be the fall guy just in case it blows up than good old Kelian, who pissed him off very early in the campaign.
Now Kelian's the boss, it would seem.
Well, of a faction that doesn't exist.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, thank you. Lady says no factions. No faction. Don't worry.
Hey, so you said everyone keeps their faction stuff?
If you want to, you can change factions. You can drop your faction and not have
Yeah,
one. You can do whatever you want at this point.
Because I was going to say, my faction bonus doesn't exist anymore. I can't pass as a member of a different faction.
Well, I was under the impression that you were going to continue on as an in-depth at this point.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll do instead.
Okay, so that's fine. If you want to keep
Makes
your own
sense to
faction
me.
bonus, the only one who can't is... I mean, Riot can't because anarchists don't really have a faction, but Liberation has a new faction now. But if you want to abandon your faction and find a new one, now's a good time to do it. But all the factions still exist. They just don't exist in Sigil anymore.
Okay.
But I remember how happy I was when I first bought this book, when it first came out, and I was reading it I don't want Reese to get mazed. That's not any good. And then she doesn't.
I love that the authors of that book love Reese just as much as you do.
Yeah, right.
Well, the actual secret is that Brickard wrote that book.
I did. It's true.
It's timey-wimey, yeah.
Are we in a
He
three
went
brick road
back in
situation?
time. Yeah, he went back in time to write the book that he eventually uses in this campaign.
Yep. That makes sense.
So what happens next?
Well, next we're going to go into our final adventure of the campaign to go free Terran.
Okay, but I mean, like today. Is the session done today?
I'm not going to launch into the next adventure today. I'm not like I have the plans for it, but it's kind of too late to get started on it, and it's probably a good idea to just do all that in one self-contained session anyway.
Okay.
How much EXP do we get for killing Darkwood like 6 times?
You didn't do shit. That was the lady that actually Darkwood did it himself. It was like he said.
That's why he's so high level.
He has no one to blame but himself.
He's killing himself over and over again.
It's just the one.
It's like falling into that infinite portal. He just keeps getting infinite experience for killing himself as he gets higher and higher level. That's why he's got 20 levels in every class.
So
Makes sense.
what Darkwood was
the Lady of Pain.
She actually doesn't have any stats. She doesn't have any statistics at all.
I was kidding. I just like the idea of her getting experience.
My actual favorite thing about the adventure, by the way, is that from what it sounds like, Skull is also amazed, and I imagine he has to be sitting there thinking, "What did I do?"
Yeah, Skull's mazed. He's done for.
We can all just imagine Skull got put in a maze that's just a giant library, and he just shrugs. It's like, all right.
Like, I'm still dead. Like, I'm just a little bit more dead now. But yeah, most of the factuals didn't actually deserve to get mazed. Just the lady was just sick of all of them. Like, Erin is one of the first to go because she was one of the bigger political movers and shakers. She doesn't actually maze Hashkar or Saren or Nylesia. So Darkwood needed Nylesia's troops. He needed that alliance because he knew everything was going to come to war, and the Fated had no standing soldiers. So what he had done was cooked up this whole romantic interlude with Nylesia, who's just a starry-eyed 19-year-old. Like, she doesn't know anything. This grandfatherly salt and pepper beard, like really handsome booming voice man comes onto her, and yeah, she's just head over heels for him. That part was totally genuine. And he promises her the sun and the moon and the Lady of Pain, and she falls in line. And he can't bring himself to kill her and pass it off as her getting mazed with the rest of them, so he sells her to demons.
Yeah, no, fuck Darkwood. He deserves everything.
Told you.
Whatever, Liberation, you just found out Darkwood's enslaved by demons. You gotta spend the rest of your life trying to free him.
Yeah, it's true.
But if I do that, it'll break the time loop, and then everything will be terrible.
You guys didn't even fight any of the fiends.
Time sucks anyway.
Darkwood's dead. Kelian wins.
I think literally every member of this party, with the possible exception of McDohl, just goes, alright.
Yeah, so let's have that discussion real quick then. The faction. So Riot, you're going to count yourself as an in-depth now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that Riot wants everybody to be in-depth, and now, as far as she's concerned, they are.
Well, I mean, there are still factions. They still operate in the multiverse.
Yeah,
Not
in
the
the
way Riot
multiverse,
sees
but not in Sigil.
Okay.
Like, institutional power that they held is gone in Sigil. There's
Okay.
whatever Reese is doing, this, like, council of whatever. But
Yeah, the
what
Sigil
Riot wants to
Advisory
happen
Council.
has happened.
Okay. So you think you won?
Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how sure were you that you were going to get mazed at some point?
Like a 9.
So is Kelian still in the Fated? Do you continue to operate in the Fated?
They still run, don't they? No, he's got his own little planter sex that he's content with now.
Okay. And did you
wants
write...
a seat, he wants a seat on that Sigil advisory board. He wants a seat on that, whatever that takes.
How much money do you have?
How much money does Kelian
Well, here's
have?
the thing: is the Hall of Records is no longer under Fated control, and it turns out that keeping records and levying taxes doesn't help the city at all. There's a lot of wealth that's going to be up for grabs. So if the Kelian just buy his way onto that council?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, if Kelian buys his way onto the council, Reese vouches for him because she's fought alongside him. You've gone on an adventure. She's had a read on you. She knows that you traveled with Mahogany and Serenity. And, I mean, just from her point of view, it's good to have former faces from as many factions as possible working on this council.
All right.
Kelian.
Do you still have that page that had benefits and restrictions from the sect you wanted to set up?
Yeah.
You can just go ahead and transition to all of that if you want.
Okay. Did I come up with benefits? I don't know if I came up with benefits.
If you didn't, we can put it together later tonight after
after
my dinner. Okay, what about Liberation? Are you going to stay in the Mind's Eye? Or...
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Mind's Eye.
Okay. Let me real quick, while we're here... I'm going to see if I can find a... like a summary of the Mind's Eye. Yeah, here we go. I'm just going to paste this into Twitch chat so you can check it out.
Okay.
It's basically a fusion of the Sign of One and the Believers of the Source, but...
Hey, Brick.
Yeah.
Are you running anything else from Faction War?
No. Faction War's done.
Okay.
And if you like Planescape stuff, I highly recommend reading it because it's a really good adventure.
I've had it on my hard drive for a while now.
Yeah, it's pretty good. What about Nath?
Well, Nath is still, a member of the Harmonium on the Harmonium homeworld.
Yeah.
Actually, the first thing Nath's going to do once the immediate crisis is solved, try and go find Hellas Dwarf.
Okay. He was operating off-plane at the time. I didn't want Dwarf getting caught up in the faction war because I knew there was stuff you guys were cooking with him outside of that.
So what does Sigil turn to for law and order after the Harmonium's gone?
The basic question to that in the immediate future really rests with you guys, because you were the ones who spoke the word liberation. So your intent behind that word shapes what the people of Sigil do in the aftermath. So the role of the Harmonium is, as a faction, they're kind of like, okay, Sigil doesn't want us there, the lady doesn't want us there, we have all this power and influence elsewhere. We're going to just focus our attention to where we can actually do some good. So if that's something that you want to have happen, that's what happens. But if you want a different outcome, just say the words.
Well, I already said the word.
I mean, Nath's personal opinion is that Hellas Dwarf is one of the few people who actually cares about the good of the city and does good by it. So he wants him to be running whatever the equivalent to the police in Sigil are.
Okay. Then, so you're absolutely not on board with the idea that the Sons of Mercy, Swan Sun people, run both the prison and the barracks.
No, that seems like just immediately that corruption will set in within the first week.
Okay. Do you want a homework assignment then before next week?
Sure.
Just come up with a new faction name, something that can do what the Harmonium did.
Okay.
Yeah, come up with a new benefit and restriction, and you can move on over to that if you want. Is Mahogany staying a cipher?
Mahogany's a cipher.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
He was always a bad member of the Transcendent Order, but he's a really good cipher.
Okay, so you're keeping
He also
the same...
goes... Yeah.
Okay.
He also goes to Serendipity and goes and talks to his actuarials. He's like, so guys, you did a bad job, but the good news is, it turns out it was all predestined and free will is sometimes a myth, so you get off on this one.
They don't have any idea what you're talking about. Which, again, you're a cipher, so they've come to expect that. So I get why they wanted to transition away from the factions in Planescape, but I'm kind of glad that the setting as a whole didn't develop a whole lot after that, because I think Sigil is much better as like a political and philosophical battleground. So Liberation, did you check out that link? The philosophy of the Mind's Eye. I just don't want you to make the decision without actually knowing what you're getting into if you turn out to not like the new philosophy.
Hey, you can be a cipher. We're recruiting. By the way, Kelian, Mahogany will say to him, I just want to say I really appreciate you letting me know that taxes were a myth before everyone else.
Wait, that what?
That taxes are a myth. They're not real.
Oh. Well, you know.
I really appreciate you having that trust in me.
Yeah, just for.
And I think you'll make a great member of the Sigil Advisory Council.
So does Kelian want to do any of the actual work, or does he just want like the prestige that comes along with it?
Kelian's never been above work. He'll work. I mean, we have to rescue Terran first, but after that, sure.
I really like... So I'm just going to say something, and this is clearly Brickroad's decision, but I really like the idea of Kelian bribing everyone and, like, finding this, like, conniving his way onto this board, and then he sits down, and Mahogany walks in and says, okay, I'm here as a member of the Business Advisory Council. And he just sits down next to him.
Well, again, I mean, you get the word was liberation, but the power of the word is in your intentions. So whatever Kelian's intention was, as far as using that word, that's how that kind of shapes his work on the advisory council. Whatever was meant by that, so that's up to him.
Oh. Oh.
I realize it's not often in a role-playing game like this where the adventurer literally says, okay, pick one word and the whole universe becomes that. Like,
that sounds Planescape, though.
It's pretty Planescape, yeah. And this is, as far as I know, this is the only place anywhere in the Planescape canon where the Lady of Pain actually speaks to people. Like, where she actually gives direct commands.
Oh, we all knew she was faking the whole time.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and... I did have some combat ready for this session, but then we rolled a 31 going into the prison there.
So just add up that. We avoided all that combat.
Oh, no, I'm not rewarding you with experience for the combat you didn't do.
As we established, I'll go to the lady anyway.
What's the EXP total on saving the City of Doors?
0.
Is that, like, good?
Like, one, I'll give you 1 blip for it, maybe. Like...
Defeated evil machinations. Kind of.
Allegedly.
Got rid of an NPC that was level 20 and that's probably what, 1,500 experience points?
I'm just thinking about the setting you could build with the post-apocalyptic sigil, where this adventure never gets solved. Like, what the survivors look like 6 years later, when the only magic food and water are the only way to survive, and there's no way in or out.
Pokedude said, can we make the word Tarask?
No ellipsis is 2 words, right?
That would be an interesting...
Depends if you put a hyphen in there.
That would be an interesting adventure, actually.
What, a post-apocalyptic?
Yeah, like 60 years on. Would be. So, the other... It's not like it's a fatal flaw, because it's kind of like DM smoke and mirrors stuff, but the players really don't have a lot of say in, like, the events of the adventure.
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty real. I noticed that. It's pretty railroady.
Like, the part with Githzerai at the end, it's like, yeah, the PCs probably won't want to give him the stone, but if they don't, he just takes it.
Like, yeah, no, it's like, you know, like, I imagine something else is going to happen.
I don't know, I feel like they really didn't anticipate us going, yo, you want this rock? Come here, touch this rock.
But that's why I liked the legend lore thing. That's why I liked putting the emphasis on, yeah, no, you get direct evidence saying he's the only one who can use the stone. So we weren't...
Yeah.
But it is a little railroady, which is why I like why it's so open-ended. Like, you guys get to pick what happens to Sigil afterwards. But that's why, like, through the whole campaign, like, you guys could never... You were never going to be in a situation where you could fight and kill Darkwood. or Night Leisure, or anybody else, really. Like, I needed all those characters for...
I don't know, we could have killed Darkwood, but then, like, Darkwood 4 pops up.
Darkwood Prime rolls up in.
I like to think that the way we got all that backstory is that Mahogany took that paper he drew of all the loops and went over to one of the floaty boys, and he's just like, "Hey, this the Unity of Rings right here," and the guy just like shakes his head and draws the lines a little differently.
Realistically, if Mahogany walks up to the Damus with like his like weird loopy thing, like I think I know what happened to Darkwood. I think I cracked the mystery. You get halfway through the sentence and then get mazed. It is not in the lady's interests at all for anybody to know what happened. So I do have another question, though. Mm-hmm. You guys know a whole bunch of factals who were innocent of a lot of wrongdoing who still got mazed. Are we going to break them all out of their mazes? You know somebody who's got a machine.
Yeah.
Is that going to be Adventure 3?
Liberation, do you want to post campaign adventure?
Well,
you and me, buddy.
One of our Aunt Nancy team members is currently mazed.
Yeah.
We did lose a guy, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost Terrence.
Yep.
Well, we're gonna need to pick up another factal. So Reese, welcome to the team.
She's way too busy. All right. So let's go ahead and give out some blips.
Who is the most creative this week?
That's my line.
Oh.
Who is the most creative this week?
I like the way you said it, McDohl.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mahogany can't get any blips this week.
Legend lore was really good. I like
Legend lore is really good.
Yeah, I like the Legend lore.
Mm-hmm. I like Legend lore because, like I said, it solved a problem that I've always had with this adventure. Because I've always, even as a kid, I was reading it, I'm like, so what, I run the adventure, and at the end I'm like, okay, so you guys can't possibly ever find this out, but here's what happened to Darkwood.
Darkwood disappears, and underneath him is a stack of papers.
You open Darkwood up, and there's another Darkwood inside, like one of those Russian stack dolls.
And then you do it again, but the third Darkwood is bigger.
Here's the question you have to ask yourself.
They both fit inside him.
So, the writers of this material... Who actually wrote this adventure? I'm not...
Monty Cook.
Was this Monty Cook?
I don't know.
Monty Cook and somebody else.
I don't think so.
Yeah, Monty Cook. And Ray Valise wrote this adventure.
I guessed correctly.
So, is Reese their favorite, or is Darkwood their favorite? Because, yeah, Reese survived, but Darkwood's like the main character who did everything.
So the truth of Planescape, actually, is that all of them are their favorite.
So we're going with Nath for creative?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
So we give one blip for the assist. Who furthered the party's goals the most? Like, yeah, Darkwood, who he did all the work, but...
Liberation volunteered to be the one to get mazed initially.
Yeah.
Liberation had a really good name.
Yeah.
We give one blip for being the badass. Who was a badass this week, besides Darkwood?
I kind of like Riot just putting the gem in Darkwood's hand. And just
but like holding on to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that really took some cojones.
Yeah.
Okay. We will award Riot the badass blip. We give one blip for intangibles.
Ferocity for not showing up.
I mean, I honestly want to give it to Riot again for screwing with Nath's faction.
I like the fact that Kelian lost his faction, shrugged, and just created a new faction.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
Well, he spent a banana on that a while ago.
Yeah, he started
developing
that a while ago.
So
yeah.
the culmination of that. Let's go ahead and post a straw poll link in the Twitch chat. Here you go. Yeah, the factions war over. Now a hatch opens.
Oh no! A goblin!
A goblin just pops up at some in-between building and Sigil and throws a bomb.
No, I'm too high level for it now. I cast Earthquake. Take down the whole tower. No more crawl spaces.
So yeah, let's go ahead and do our belief rundown. I'm sure nobody has any beliefs this week.
Nah,
that's not going to come up, right?
Not at all.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Kelian.
Kelian. What's Kelian's belief?
Kelian's belief was, it is up to me to be ruthless to educate my otherwise clueless associates.
And how does that belief kind of color his take on the word liberation as being used in the Sigil spell? In other words, how does his belief influence how he shapes Sigil afterwards?
Well, it's funny you asked that because his belief has changed.
Okay.
So
you've lived your belief this week?
Yeah.
Okay, and learned anything new about it?
There are limits. There are limits to everything. When faced with the idea of Sigil could be yours and you can reshape it however you want, he was like, Lady's been kind of okay. Like, and she's really powerful and she can probably kick all of our asses, but why change a good thing?
And so what's the new belief?
I got to think about it.
Okay.
It's because it's probably going to be drastically.
Okay.
The lady's pretty good.
I will give you the belief point for changing it then.
As soon as the new one comes up.
So it's the other way around then. It's not that your belief influences what you meant by liberation. It's that what you meant by liberation is going to influence your new belief.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
Okay, who's next?
I'll go.
Mahogany.
You go.
Yeah.
What's Mahogany's belief?
It is everything has a perfect state of being, and it is your responsibility to be your perfect state.
Okay, and did he live that belief this week?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
Because he knew that essentially Riot was like, oh, you could just not come if you don't believe in this. Like, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And Mahogany knew, like, no, this is my chance to get my take on it, you know? This is my opportunity to be me. And he also felt that when the faction just broke up. He's just like, all right, well, it was never much of a... Like, the faction itself was never why I did the things I do. I have these beliefs because I have these beliefs.
And did he learn anything new about his beliefs?
No.
And are they changing?
No.
And how does Mahogany's belief influence
liberation?
Liberation.
Mahogany's beliefs influence liberation, and that what he thinks of as liberation, in terms of the city, is everyone having the opportunity to be their own perfect state. But what that means for him is, the way liberation is seeing it in Riot is, that means everyone's free. You know, like, there's no slavery. Everyone has opportunity to move freely. But the way Mahogany sees it as a neutral character is that Sigil is the way it is because we have evil people, because we have lawful types. And they have to have the opportunity to be what they're doing too. Like, if there was no more harmonium, like, if there's nothing keeping the law, then the whole city is just chaos. There needs to be equal parts of both.
Okay. And who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Riot.
Belief is, it is not my place to judge those who are in bondage, it's my place only to free them.
And you lived that belief this week?
Yeah. Because when, Mahogany said, hey, Riot, let's not do liberation because fiends. And Nath was like, hey, Riot, let's not do liberation because illithids. Riot was like, no, we're doing it. I don't care who gets freed, I don't care what comes in. We're just freeing people. We're liberation.
Did she learn anything new about her belief?
Let's see. No, I don't think so.
And is it changing?
No.
And how did her belief influence the use of the word liberation? Like, what was the force behind that? Just the pure dictionary definition of the word?
So I know that what happens because that's the way that the faction war is written.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think, like, because Riot is in the story and as one of the PCs who use liberation, the fact that there are no institutional controls on Sigil anymore, that there's, like, you know, the Sons of...
Oh, Nick, you cut out.
No.
I heard Sons of Mercy.
He'll get back in like a second or two. He's been coming back like after a couple seconds.
His phone's a trooper. I'm gonna give his phone a blip.
Don't level it.
Actually, leveling his phone might be what he needs.
Yeah.
Sorry. What was the last thing I said?
Sons of
Sons
Mercy.
of Mercy.
Sons of Mercy, yeah. So, yeah, they have no... They're still around, but they don't run the prison. The governors are still around, but they don't make the laws. So I think Riot's contribution to liberation was liberation from official institutional control.
Okay.
Okay.
What's Nath's belief?
I will walk the razor's edge between justice, order, and compassion.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Now I like the wording on that a lot. Live that belief this week.
Yeah. Pretty much the entire discussion with White Spear. Most of his work with the group was primarily to make sure that the city didn't tear itself apart or starve to death.
And did he learn anything new?
Yes. Nath learned that even though... What do I want to say here? You learn that even in a place like Sigil, it's still worth trying for this sort of thing, because I'm pretty sure Nath was about as cynical. Like, he was talking probably more about himself when he was talking to her about how cynical people were.
Right.
About Sigil on the Harmonium homeworld.
And is his belief changing? I imagine not. 'Cause it
No.
just did. And how does his new belief, like, how was that influence what he means in his heart by the word liberation?
To him, it would be freedom of all of the society to prosper, be at their best, which does include some degree of, law and order, but it's much less corrupt, much more well educated, and much more fair. Not just the rich people get to basically make whatever laws they want.
So in terms of being lawfully aligned, Nath does not consider the word liberation to mean like complete freedom. You don't have unrestricted freedom to do anything you want.
No, obviously, because you can't take someone else's freedom of life away, because there's the whole to look at.
And that's where he's going to continue to walk that razor's edge.
Yep.
We have a character named Liberation, but I can't imagine he's got anything to say on any of this.
Nah.
What's Liberation's belief?
Chains of oppression must be broken to permit those to flourish, but I must be prepared to accept that some cannot be saved.
Okay, and did he live that belief this week?
Yes. Because of the...
Just imagining him saying no. I'm sorry.
Liberation's a dribble now.
That didn't come up.
Yeah, I really didn't. No, just in general, like, this whole situation with Darkwood just kind of proves that if he's doomed to this eternal timeline, that time loop, that he just, like, there's really nothing he can do about that.
So Darkwood's one of those that can't be saved. Like, there's nothing that can be done.
Like, Liberation has no idea, like, how time works, but apparently it's not a singular line from cause to effect. Sometimes and then we get into that whole Doctor Who speech, but anyway. Besides that, no, basically, yeah, just Darkwood in general.
And learn anything new about his beliefs?
Yes, but I can't really elaborate on that, because, all it really means is his belief is changing from one word to another.
Okay, so how is his belief changing?
I must be prepared to accept that some should not be saved.
And Darkwood qualifies.
Darkwood qualifies.
So,
because, in all, like, in pretty objective viewpoint, like, Sigil made it out pretty damn good.
Pretty much.
And to go messing around with time to try and, get Darkwood out of that situation he's in is likely to cause bad things to happen. And no, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
For the record, I consider Planescape to follow lost rules of time travel, so you can't change it anyway. Whatever happened, happened. So how does Liberation's belief, like, how does that influence what he meant by the word liberation at the casting of the Sigil spell?
That everyone should be free to pursue their own goals and their own objectives, as long as that doesn't step on everyone else. Once you start stepping on other people and pushing them down, that's when Liberation has a problem with it.
So similar to Nath, it shouldn't
Basically,
be unfettered. Yeah. Okay. Because I asked 4 belief questions this week, there were 4 opportunities to get a belief point. Riot and Mahogany, you each took 2. Kelian, Nath, and Liberation, you each took 3 belief points. And
Liberation, what was your viewpoint? I think the city should just turn into a giant me. Just my face.
And Riot took our straw poll this week. So let's go ahead and give out experience for the second time tonight.
Sure.
I gave everybody 2 blips for bringing the faction war to an end. For your work putting together the puzzles, handling Darkwood, picking a word that didn't completely screw the city up afterwards. So that's 2 blips for everybody. Riot, I gave you your faction blip since you literally, like, actually got your faction belief to the letter. You're also taking Badass and the straw poll for the week.
Can I argue briefly for flaw? Because I didn't... Which my flaw is, I don't trust anyone but me not to fuck everything up. And when Darkwood said, no, give me the stone, Riot was like, you'll take the stone, but I'm putting my hand on yours. Like, I want to be involved in the casting of this spell. And it hurt her a lot.
Did it really?
It didn't really.
Like 14 damage?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the flaw blip if you give me carte blanche to actually fuck something up.
Oh, yeah?
Like, we come back next week and you'll find out, I didn't get everything I wanted. Now things are worse and I missed the factions.
No. I think I'll pass on a little bit of experience to get what I want.
Okay. Liberation.
Hey.
I gave you your faction blip for the answer you gave to Rose. You took the assists and 2 blips for the faction war.
Okay.
Kelian. I'm awarding you your faction blip, but not for the Fated, because you actually quit your faction. You were done with the Fated. You came to a realization that their philosophy was, if not completely bankrupt, at least incomplete. You took the initiative to begin your new faction, so I'm giving you a faction blip. You took the intangibles and 2 for your role in the war. Nath, I gave you your alignment blip for your works with the Harmonium and your conversation with Whitespear. You took the creative. You took the first straw poll for last week.
Oh, wow, I don't remember why.
I don't either, because I just looked at the results, and there it is. And 2 for the faction war. And I didn't give Mahogany anything this week. Do you want to make a case? My notes have you only taken the 2 for the faction war. Nobody gave you anything.
I think probably his alignment blip, at least.
Yeah, for
that makes
discussion
a lot of sense.
With the stone.
Not only that, but his outlook after the fact as well. And he... Because the idea that, like, without evil, Sigil doesn't work the way it should, as you can imagine, is not very popular amongst actual players who are playing heroic characters. And the Faction War book actually cautions against using words like order and peace and things like that, because they can be loaded words. They can come off as a little too lawful or a little too good, and that's not good for Sigil. So yeah, I can Mahogany take your alignment blip for that. I like your just outlook in general on the neutral alignment. Most players I see that take a true neutral alignment just don't want to pick an alignment and don't want to think about it. So I like that you actually do put a lot of thought into it.
So next
Well,
place.
I think for like most NPCs, they're neutral because they don't have a viewpoint. But if you're a PC, you should have a viewpoint.
Well, when I'm running NPCs, I just tend to give them like a blanket alignment. Like, what alignment is their society, you know? But yeah, in general, I agree. I think D&D is a game about, like, the cosmic war between good and evil, law and chaos. A PC should stake a claim on that. So...
That's also why I disagreed with Riot so strongly when she kept saying that Mahogany said that he didn't want Fiends to get in. Like, there's already Fiends in Sigil. Fiends are part of Sigil.
I will say, though, that part of me was like, if they choose balance, should I just have Sigil no longer, take it literally, like, it has to be balanced, the weight has to be distributed evenly across the town, or else it'll tip and slide down the side.
No, like I said, angular momentum.
Alright, so we don't have anything left in this campaign except the big finale, when you guys go in after Terran. We're ending a little early. Do you guys want to talk about how you're going to approach that?
Sure.
First,
I don't have any plans.
I have
Yeah,
one,
we can do that.
I have one question
Yeah.
about leveling in kind of the rest of the campaign.
Yeah.
I am not able to pull up the calendar at the moment, but I think there's still like a month left before Riot's spell is ready.
Probably something like that. Yeah, I'll bring up the calendar here.
Yeah.
I have to decide which tab to open it on top of. Oh, I ended up
Blips are
using...
still 2,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. 22.9.
I had Fantasy Name Generator opened up because I was like, so which of these... Like, I just need to invent an NPC from the Sons of Mercy to be running the Harmonium. Oh, I can just use White Spear. That's perfect. By my count, she has about a week and a half left before that spell's ready.
Oh, okay. Well, that's perfect for what I was going to suggest. Because the reason that Riot has this Banshee... What was she?
The Poets of Distortion?
No, the undead lady who was working.
She was a Banshee.
Yeah, she was a Banshee.
Yeah. The reason the Banshee Sorceress is working on this for me is because it's supposedly going to be helpful to us in our assault on Terran's campaign. So I think once the whole Sigil stuff is done, Riot is going to go back to Grand Starius' domain and help her work on it.
Okay.
For the last week or so.
That's fair enough.
Can we just level in the interim? Like, do we need to devote an action, or can I level up my character right now?
No, if you have the experience, go ahead and level now, because we kind of sped through a week or so of downtime. Oh, actually, I didn't factor that in on the calendar. Right, your spell actually... No, we're coming like right up on it, like 3 days.
Oh, okay.
Literally.
Well, even better.
Because, yeah, I did kind of fast forward through about a week of Sigil when the fighting was coming down and you guys were doing some stuff. That puts us at the 21st, and I've got your spell being ready on the 24th.
Okay.
So
Then I will figure out what
Can I,
spell I want to lose in order to get in the spell.
Can I ask you some faction stuff, or do you guys just want to do the Terran preparation right now?
I like talking about factions.
Faction stuff is way more interesting. Let's do that.
Could I merge my new faction with the Bleakers?
With the Bleakers?
Yeah. They're philosophically tremendously opposed, but I want to be... My thought for them is to name them the Lawgivers and make them a combination of humanitarian aid and law and order.
So what part of the Bleaker philosophy survives? Just the war taught them that there is value to all this? Like, it's not just pointless? Like, there is
They have one of the two surviving factals. What does he do afterwards?
So he's actually not part of faction war at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just mention, like, he and Sroos never do anything at all anywhere in the Planescape meta plot, as far as I know. They're just mentioned in passing.
Because it's all pointless.
Well, a lot of the factals aren't, actually. Like, a lot of the factals never do anything. But the faction war is very clear about Sroos being mazed, and books before the faction war are pretty clear that the reason Sroos would be factal is because Lar goes temporarily insane. Like, there's a whole thing on it in the Factals Manifesto. So that's just... I took some creative liberties with that. Like, the book doesn't tell us what happens with Lar.
So, yeah, my thought on that would be that I would think that the actual, like, nihilists would basically break off at that point and probably go to an off-world retreat, and what would be left would be the people who are more interested in the humanitarian work.
Yeah, that sounds great, actually. That sounds perfect.
Plus, I've put in a lot of effort to try and work with them previously. So.
You have. Yeah, I'm down with that. Like Lar.
Like my hope is I don't know which side Lar falls on, but my hope is to get Dwarf basically running that group.
Well, my thought it would be something like Lar just came out of being insane, which means, and he was dealing with this war. Like he could have just had some epiphany. Like the whole, it's not pointless.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people worked really hard, especially this Nath cat, to make sure that the common man survived this conflict. So no, that's perfectly acceptable to me. That sounds great.
So yeah, I want to have a new faction jointly run by Lar and Dwarf then.
Okay.
And I'll write that up.
See, I see him coming from the opposite angle, where he's like, it's all pointless, but meaning is what you make of it.
Right.
So what we'll do then is we'll say that Dwarf will take on the role of the Factal, which means he's operating mostly off Sigil, but then Lar would be on the advisory council.
Yeah, and he can even use his current Mount Celestia hangout, I think, for the off Sigil headquarter.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that. So yeah, I have a pretty hellzacious dungeon to run you guys through starting next week. I don't know how long it will take. There's a lot to it. And you guys, like, what I haven't factored in yet are all of the resources from the campaign that you guys might be able to call in. So you will have the Relentless. I planned for that. You will have basically a deep font of information as you start talking to the Bottle of Terran.
Sorry, I really like that name, the Bottle of Terran.
You guys have... Zook said that he would come and fight alongside you when the time came. And whatever other resources you think you can dream up. You guys have made a lot of friends and enemies over the course of the campaign. I noticed that none of you have tried to... Nancy hasn't bothered any of you in a minute.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll ask that now. Do you guys make any effort in the near term to break Terrence out of the maze? Is that a consideration?
Like a post-Terran project to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Kelian didn't like doing it the first time, and that seemed...
Nath will be all into it just for the intellectual curiosity alone. Like, getting as much of the notes from the Transcendent Order and trying to reconstruct the experiment would probably keep him busy for years.
Like, I know everyone else seems to be okay with, like, thumbing their noses at the lady. Kelian's not. He dreads it every time, because, he's got his perfect maze picked out, and he's hoping he gets to it. Like,
I think Riot's kind of on Kelian's side in this. Like, she's definitely about breaking people out of prison, but also she is definitely afraid of the lady.
Probably pretty safe. Okay, so there's going to be... I'm expecting a lot of surprises in the big finale adventure. I'm leaving a lot of stuff unscripted. I've done a lot of... I've designed, like, puzzles and tricks and things that don't have solutions just to see what you crazy cats come up with. And then that'll be it for Flumphscape. And then we'll put it on the shelf and never speak of it again.
Yeah, we said that about Salute and look where we are now.
I'm letting everyone know that I am writing down on a list the spells that Ferocity took when she leveled up.
So wait, you leveled up Ferocity?
Oh yeah, she went through hell in that hut.
Because previously you said you were going to apply all the experience to
Mahogany. I didn't even look at the number, I just popped up Ferocity a level or two. I was just like, nah.
Right.
I didn't add a number of experience to Ferocity.